I got a divorce a long time ago. In our living room, my husband, with a smirk, was whispering sweet nothings to a woman I didn't know. He had no idea I was watching everything through the baby monitor. Little did he know, I was locked in a storage room by him, heavily pregnant and freezing, and could only watch the two of them in silence. My husband, who used to be kind, changed completely after I got pregnant. Clearly, what he loved wasn't me but the servant who did all the chores. I'll never forgive him. He'll regret this. I made a strong vow to make my selfish husband pay. My name is Lynn. I'm 28 years old and have been married for 2 years. My husband, Rick, who is turning 34 this year, and I met at work. He fell for me at first sight, pursued me relentlessly, and eventually, we started dating and got married. Later, I moved with him due to his job transfer, and even after changing companies, his love for me never wavered. However, everything changed when I gave him some news. "Honey, I'm pregnant. We're going to be parents." One day, I ran up to Rick with teary eyes as he came home from work. I had secretly taken a test and found out I was pregnant. I was overjoyed because I had always wanted a baby and believed he would be just as happy, as he also wanted children. But Rick's face stiffened at my news. "Seriously? Aren't you happy? You said you wanted kids too." "Well, yeah, I'm happy. That's great." I was puzzled by his somewhat distant attitude, but thought he was just not fully grasping the reality yet. However, after I got pregnant, he completely lost interest in me. "There's a movie I want to see. Do you want to go together? And we can check out baby stuff too. I'm busy lately. If you want to go, go by yourself." "What? But I think you need a break every now and then. Stop nagging. I don't have time to play around." Rick used to make time for me. But ever since I got pregnant, he wouldn't even bother and rudely dismissed all my requests. Confused by his sudden change, I decided to wait and see, thinking he might really be busy with work. However, as my morning sickness began, his attitude escalated. "Hey, why isn't dinner ready? That's your job. I'm sorry, but I feel so sick I can't cook." "What? Pregnancy isn't a sickness. Stop whining and cook already. I'm starving." I was constantly nauseous and couldn't stand the smell of food. But Rick didn't care at all. In fact, he demanded that I do all the chores perfectly. I did argue back, but he dismissed me with, "How can you be a mother if you can't even handle this?" Feeling unwell, I couldn't retort further. As my belly grew, he hurled unexpected insults at me. "Your belly looks disgusting. Don't walk next to me like that. It's natural because I'm carrying our baby. Please don't say things like that. I can't see a mother as a woman. Things were better before." I cried countless times because of his cruel words. He showed no interest in our baby, and I ended up preparing all the baby items by myself. What should have been a joyful pregnancy turned out to be the loneliest time of my life, and honestly, I was at my breaking point emotionally. But even so, I never considered divorce. I couldn't bear the thought of my child growing up without a father, and I still believed in Rick, who had once said he wanted children. Once he sees the baby's face, he'll come around. However, just as I was thinking that, an incident occurred. It happened one day when I was on maternity leave, close to my due date. My old cell phone suddenly stopped working. "I'm sorry, Rick. My phone broke. Could you drive me to the cell phone store? It's just around the corner. Go by yourself. But I'm in my last month of pregnancy, and I'm worried something might happen. I'm busy. Besides, I have a remote meeting today. If you go out, don't come back until the evening." Rick didn't even glance away from his computer. I felt uneasy going out alone so close to my due date, but I needed a phone to keep in touch with the hospital. So I reluctantly took a taxi to the cell phone store. An hour later, I successfully got a new phone. I was told not to come back until the evening. I wandered around to kill time, but my belly started to feel tight. Rick was having a remote meeting at home, so I hesitated to go back. But worried about being out alone, I sent Rick a message and decided to head home. A few minutes later, I arrived home and struggled out of the car with my big belly. Just then, "Why are you back already?" Rick must have realized I was home when he heard the taxi door slam shut. The front door burst open with tremendous force, and Rick came out looking flustered. "I sent you a message, remember? I came back early. I didn't check my phone." "Fine. I guess I have no choice." Suddenly, he looked up and pointed to the storage shed in the yard. I was hoping to keep this hidden a bit longer, but I have something to show you there. His words surprised me. There was a shed in our yard, but as far as I knew, it was empty. Rick grabbed my hand and led me to the yard, despite my confusion. Could he have bought toys for the baby? That thought crossed my mind, and I felt a bit excited. But my hopes were soon crushed. Stay here quietly for a while. Ouch! Rick pushed me into the shed as soon as he opened it. He then snatched my phone from my pocket, which I couldn't grab back due to my limited movement. What are you doing? It's your fault for coming back early. He spat those words, slammed the shed door, and locked it from the outside. Stunned and with no idea what was happening, I found myself locked in the cold shed with my unborn baby. Hey, let me out. At first, I banged on the door and yelled, but then I calmed down. Even if I scream, Rick won't help me. Wait, I can use this. I pulled out a new phone from my other pocket and turned it on. Luckily, Rick had taken the old phone, and the new one was still with me. I also had a baby monitor set up to keep an eye on the living room for the baby's sake. I opened the app and was shocked by what I saw in the living room. A big house. You really live alone, right? I told you, didn't I? I got a divorce long time ago. Rick, with a smirk, was sweet-talking some woman in the living room. Yes, he was in the middle of an affair. The only one I love is you, Jessica. Unaware that I was watching, Rick was cozying up to a woman who seemed younger than me. Seeing him in such a pathetic state finally woke me up. No matter the reason, a husband who cheats while his wife is pregnant can't truly love his family. Clearly, he loved not me, but the maid who took care of all his needs. Realizing this, all my pent-up frustration exploded into anger. I'll never forgive him. He'll regret this. As I made a firm vow to make Rick pay, an unexpected situation arose. Sorry, I got called in by the office. Can you wait here for a bit? Something urgent must have happened. Rick checked his phone and hurried out, leaving the woman alone in the living room. At that moment, a thought occurred to me. It was risky, but I was desperate and decided to go through with it. A week after being locked in the storage room, Rick finally returned home, only to stand dumbfounded in front of the storage shed. No way. I was stuck dealing with a company scandal and couldn't come back. I was going to let her out soon. He muttered to himself, his face pale, collapsing to the ground. Of course. The storage room had been abandoned for a week, and a strong odor was emanating from it. Too scared to open it, Rick just stood there trembling when his phone suddenly rang. It was his mistress calling. Rick, I saw the news. The scandal must have been tough, but where are you? Rick put her on speakerphone, so their conversation was loud and clear. Jessica, help me. Come over right away. What? I don't understand, but I'll be there soon. Rick had locked me up to keep his affair a secret, but now he was desperately turning to her for help. He must have been in a panic, unable to think straight. Minutes later, Jessica rushed to the storage room, and Rick clung to her pathetically. I locked my wife in here for a week. There's a horrible smell. I don't what I shall do. He confessed everything to his mistress. Not only has he not divorced me, but he is also about to have a baby. And that he had left me locked in the storage room for a week. Are my wife and baby okay? As Rick slumped in despair, Jessica looked down at him sternly. Then, glancing at the storage shed, she said something shocking. Why don't you ask her yourself? What? At that moment, I, who had been watching from the shadows, stepped out in front of them. Both the baby and I are perfectly fine. Lynn, what are you doing here? Rick, wide-eyed in confusion, was pushed into the storage room by me and Jessica. As payback, I locked the storage shed, trapping him inside. Let me out. It stinks. Ugh. Even though I couldn't see him, I knew Rick was suffering. Why are you doing this? And how do you two know each other? Still not grasping the situation. He banged on the storage door, while Jessica, with a furious expression, shouted back at him. I was the one who let Lynn out of the shed, you traitor. After being locked in the shed, I remembered that the baby monitor had an audio feature, so I took a chance and spoke to Jessica. There was a possibility that Rick's mistress wouldn't think well of me, but living in Rick's transfer location, I had no friends nearby who could help me quickly. Luckily, my gamble paid off. Jessica, understanding the situation, immediately unlocked the shed. I had a feeling he was seeing someone else, but I never thought he had a wife. I'm so sorry. Jessica apologized deeply and explained everything about her relationship with Rick. Apparently, they started their affair a year ago. Rick, unable to see me as a woman after I got pregnant, turned to infidelity. Jessica, with her sharp instincts, suspected Rick's affair and confronted him at our house, which led to my being locked in the shed. This is unforgivable. Not only did he deceive me, but he also treated a pregnant woman like this. Knowing the truth, Jessica was furious with Rick. Initially, I felt uneasy about her, but after hearing her side, I realized the real villain was my husband. Together, we formed a plan out of our shared anger. Oh, by the way, the source of the smell is a can of Surströmming. It's said to be the world's smelliest canned herring. I had bought it out of curiosity and left it slightly open in the shed. I waited for Rick to come home, intending to trap him in the stinky shed. I didn't expect him to be away for a week though. Jessica called you at just the right time, so we could trap you in the shed. We knew Rick would rely on Jessica, so we orchestrated everything to get her to the house. You two planned this together? That's so underhanded. Let me out. It's cold and it stinks in here. Finally understanding the situation, Rick furiously pounded on the shed door. But the door was strong, and we had no intention of letting him out until he learned his lesson. Why should we let you out when you haven't even reflected on what you've done? You did this to yourself. It's karma. Despite his initial bravado, Rick couldn't withstand the stench. Within minutes, his voice cracked and he started crying loudly. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please let me out. His pathetic cries echoed through the yard. Of course, we didn't let him out easily. We kept him locked in the smelly shed for 2 hours. Afterward, I divorced Rick, with Jessica's testimony providing solid evidence of his infidelity. Given that he had also locked me in the shed, I successfully claimed $20,000 in compensation. Rick was also found to be the cause of the scandal at work, leading to his immediate dismissal. Now, he's unemployed and wandering aimlessly. Meanwhile, I returned to my parents' home and gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I even became friends with Jessica. From now on, I'm looking forward to spending happy times with my daughter.